Shalom, welcome back. This is Avi Ben Shalom, and we're doing lesson number 5 of Learning Biblical Hebrew. And we're going to be focusing on many elements in this page, and so let's begin. Alright, so in your book, you're going to notice that the word is Adonai here, and of course, here is a proper noun, okay? I've changed the whole structure of the sentence by just changing a few elements. Number one, we're making this a noun with the definite direct object marker. And here we're making this a noun as well instead of the proper noun. So we can still utilize the structure of it because we're not going to write God's name on here. And that's what I told you about earlier about this book is typically utilizing God's name, but it's because they want to get you right into the actual text of translating the Bible itself. So without further ado, let's go on and completely go forth right now. So let's read our sentence here. Devar Hanavi, the word of the prophet, Asher, which Haya happened, El unto Ha'anashim, the men. Now we're going to break apart this sentence and begin to understand the structure that's going on here. So let's look at the first part. The first part we're going to have is right here. This right here, these two nouns, is the noun construct. Okay? Noun construct. What is a noun construct? Okay? A noun construct is when we're taking two nouns or more and we're going to be utilizing these nouns to create a relationship between them, okay? The two nouns or more always have to begin with the first one. The first one is the construct, and we say this one is in the construct state, okay? The last one in our noun is called the absolute. Alright? The last one is what creates this whole noun construct to become full and operative. Okay? Without the absolute, nothing will make sense. Okay? And I'm going to teach about how noun constructs work, and we're going to see the different ways you can utilize noun constructs. Okay? So, let's learn first about the construct state. Okay? The construct state basically just means the noun that's being put here may possibly change to some format, and the vowelization may change outside of its norm. Okay? Here we have the actual Hebrew word devar. Okay? But in the construct state, we have to vowelize this differently, and that's because we're having to shorten a little bit of what's going on sound-wise. So this is what happens in the construct state with devar. We put the shua underneath the dalet, and we put the petach underneath the bet. So now we have devar instead of the word davar. Davar versus davar. Okay? And the next one is the absolute. The absolute doesn't have to be definite. Okay? So there's two things we have to learn about this. We're going to learn about definite absolutes and indefinite absolutes. Okay? The absolute is what finishes the noun construct. I want you to think of noun constructs is there are two ways of understanding them. We could think of this as the of that we would utilize grammatically in Hebrew when we're taking two nouns and we place of in the middle of it. For example, if I said a cup of, and then I wrote the word tea. Okay? The noun construct is the grammatical form, which is the structure by which of is being utilized, but in a formality of its grammar rather than having the actual word being used. So that means the of is assumed as being the in-between nature of these two words when we're translating it from Hebrew back into English. The other form of a noun construct is when we're utilizing identification. Okay? Identification is going to be, for example, if we were to say a school bus, okay? A school bus, what is it? It's a bus that's used for schools, okay? This is what we think of as a noun compound word. It's where we have two nouns by which the other one is used like an adjective, okay? So let's learn this form and then we'll get to the next form and we'll understand how this is going to be utilized. Alright, so the first form is our of statement. Here we're going to require the question of, is it definite or is it indefinite? If it's indefinite, then of course that absolute will be the indefinite noun. Let's say, for example, this was indefinite. So now we have the word devar ish, okay, by which we would translate it a word of a man. Notice in Hebrew we have no indefinite article. Once again, we remembered that every noun by itself is indefinite. The only time a noun becomes definite is under three circumstances. One, it's a proper noun. Number two, we have the hey article that's placed in front, which creates the definite state. Or number three, we have a pronoun ending. And we saw that, for example, when I talked about, I'm just erase this word ish here for a second. We talked about like the word sus is the word horse, right? And if I add the yud to the front, it becomes susi, my horse. The yud makes it possessive. And that, of course, is the third state by which a noun can be defined as definite. The first state, it's a proper noun. The second state, the hey has the definite article on the noun. The third state is the possessive pronoun. These are the only three ways a noun can be defined as definite. Okay? So, that being said, we know that those three factors have to exist in order to create the absolute definite state. But here, we're looking for the indefinite right now. Okay? So here, I'm putting the word ish. And ish means a man. We first off, when we understand that the word devar is the first word, we got to remember the word order is also going to follow the same thing we have in English. Devar is going to be the first set of words that we'll be utilizing. This is indefinite. And why is this word devar indefinite? Is not because of this. We don't look for, on the construct state, the definiteness. The definiteness comes from the absolute state. This here is the key player that defines whether the noun is definite or indefinite. But there is a rule by which this does not apply to, and we're going to learn that here in this video as well. So, when the absolute noun is indefinite, then the whole noun construct is indefinite, which means I'm going to be using my articles, which define indefinite states, in front of my nouns. So a word is going to be used for this. Of, which indicates the separation that I have to do in order to remember grammatically this noun construct is the of form. And then lastly, ish is indefinite, so I have to make it a man. So a word of a man is how I would translate this. Okay? Now, when we're looking for the issues by which we define in here, how is it possible that we're not going to make this a definite state, by which I said to you, the way we would make this definite is I could put here, ha. If I said davar ha'ish, now I'm talking about that this whole statement is no longer allowed to be regarded as indefinite, but now I have to make it definite. Because why? Because the construct always is the absolute that defines the state by which the construct is going to be understood as. Okay? So davar ha'ish now becomes the word of the man. Okay? So the word of the man is how we would utilize this. If I was to change this noun, instead of using ha'ish, and I was to write the word, let's say, Moshe. Now, what would I do? I would take the same thing that I have here. I would start by saying, is this noun definite? Absolutely. Why? Because this is the proper noun Moshe, which is a name. So now I'd have to say, here, the word davar is definite, so I put the word the. Then I'm saying word of, because this is the grammatical form of, right? We're doing noun constructs. Lastly, the absolute. I don't need to put the Moshe, because Moshe is definite. The is the only time we utilize when we're making a noun that by itself is indefinite on its own accord. When we're taking a proper noun, we already know it's definite, and so therefore we don't need to put the in English, just like we don't need to put the in Hebrew. Okay? So the word of Moshe is now the noun construct. Okay? Davar Moshe. Okay? So we went from indefinite to definite using the hey article. Now we went from definite from the hey article to the definite using a proper noun. Now we're going to look at this and take away this here, and now we're going to use the last form of the definite. Alright, and in this form we're going to put here. Avi. Av, if I were to take the vowel off for a second here, is the word father. By making it possessive, by adding the yud, I say Avi, which means my father. Now, this should be translated the word of. How am I going to define it as definite? Remember, the possessive pronoun here makes it definite. So now it becomes the word of my father. Now you see how this is working out. It's not that difficult. You can begin to really see how, knowing that this is the possessive pronoun, this possessive pronoun makes it definite. That's why we put my, because we know my possessive means something definite, because it's referring to something that is known absolutely. Okay? Father, which is the last word here, and now we have the word of my father. Now, this means we've shown you all of the possible definite states. We've shown you one of the possible indefinite states. Now we're going to show you the limbo. Okay, this is a very special one. This is the limbo one. This is the one by which, when we're looking at it, we know it's a noun construct, but we're going to ask ourselves, is it definite or is it indefinite? Because this limbo one is not going to follow the main pattern by which we are used to seeing in the ones that we've done so far. So, let's start it out by using the word ben. Ben, we know, is the word son. As you can see here in the construct state, the word ben is not changed in any way, shape, or form. Matter of fact, if you want to know the best resource book-wise by which you can utilize in order to help you know how to find all the possible construct looks, well, there's a few dictionaries out there that you can get. This one here is a dictionary it's called Milon Amim. It's a Hebrew dictionary. There's also another one that was done by Evan Shoham. It's a large volume. As a matter of fact, there's one that comes in about, I think, 6 volume books. There's another one that's the Evan Shoham, but it's more of a shorter version, but it's a big fat dictionary. It's called the Evan Shoham Dictionary. Evan Shoshan Dictionary. Now, this Evan Shoshan Dictionary, awesome dictionary, and I'll tell you why it's an awesome dictionary. Let's say you're like, okay, listen, I don't know how to read Hebrew dictionaries yet with regard to the Hebrew. I'm still working on my vocabulary, all right? Why would I want a Hebrew dictionary? I mean, if all the definitions are written in Hebrew, why would I want a Hebrew dictionary? Let me tell you why you want this dictionary, okay? Number one, every noun construct that's written, if I know the word ben, okay, I can look up in the dictionary the word ben. It'll give me the written construct state for ben. So if I'm practicing and utilizing the need to remember what does the construct state look like with the vowels, well, this book gives you all of them. So you can look up any word, whether it's love, whether it's cup, doesn't matter what the noun is. You look up the noun and you can find the construct state. It's actually listed under the definitional point in brackets. And this is a great thing because noun constructs are probably one of the hardest things to find and understand. In a written form without vowels, it's pretty easy to actually write out. How to vowelize it, that's another thing in itself. That's why I said that goes into the more complex areas of Hebrew grammar, where it's how do I utilize the vowels, at what point do I need to use the tzarei versus the segol, or how would I use tzarei milei versus just the tzarei. And all these things come about in asking these questions, and this kind of simplifies the issue, so you don't have to work so hard into going through all these things to understand it. It gives you the construct state, so you can actually use the construct state with the vowels in it, and you can practice using any noun construct you want to create. So let's talk about this limbo noun construct. In this limbo noun construct, here the absolute we're going to make definite, okay? So here we're going to say the absolute is going to be the word Yonah. Yonah we're going to say is a masculine noun, just like the prophet Yonah, okay? Ben Yonah. So what do you think Ben Yonah means? You might say in your head, hey, the absolute state is definite. So that means the whole noun construct is definite. So you're thinking the son of Yonah, right? The answer is wrong and right. You're like, whoa, wait a second here, wrong and right. What do you mean wrong and right? Okay. There's a special rule in Biblical Hebrew that tells me that when it comes to a noun construct like this, what can happen? Let's say Yonah has a lot of kids, all right? And I was not referring to a particular one because he's got more than one, all right? But I want to talk about one. Then this is what happens here. Here the word ben is going to be regarded as indefinite. That means I'm going to change the definite article here and I'm going to replace it with the indefinite. Now we're referring to a son, but the absolute state still stays absolute. It still stays in the definite state. Okay? So now Ben Yonah is no longer the son, but it's now referred to as a son of Yonah. A one. That means one of many of Yonah's sons. Very important to understand the fact that this exists, because if you don't understand this, you're not going to understand some major problems that exist within the fact of what you read in the Torah and what you read in the prophets. Matter of fact, let me give you some little biblical insight here, okay? If you read in the New Testament, and let's say we're reading a Hebrew New Testament, and we saw, for example, the word Ben Elohim, and many times Mashiach was called over and over again Ben Elohim, right? Well, how would this be translated? The answer is most of the Bibles actually incorrectly translate this actual noun construct state. And we find that many times what happens is Mashiach never was saying in these particular contexts that he's the Son of God, okay? Matter of fact, he in certain contexts referred to himself as being a Son of God. Why is that important? Well, what does a Son of God mean? It means one who obeys the Father, one who walks in obedience and keeps the Torah. Okay? Now, here's the major point that's very vital and important to see. Okay? As you can see here, this is when we're taking the indefinite state of the construct here. Now, you want to know why the Pharisees flipped out and they wanted to do everything because they went crazy and they couldn't handle the fact that what Mashiach really was? It's when they asked him this question. They said, "Are you Ben Elohim?" And in this context, they were directly asking him, not in the state by which Ben is in the indefinite state, but rather Ben as being the definite state. The definite state changes the whole context. And when we put this in the definite state like this, the son of Yonah, what you're basically saying here is, in Hebrew, that you are referring to this person as the only one who really follows Yonah properly. That's what you'd be basically saying. So when they said, "Are you Ben Elohim?" when they asked that question, they were placing the Ben in the definite state. And when he said, "You have said it," they were like, they flipped out. Because it basically said, he is the only one who keeps Torah right perfectly. And that's the beauty of God's Word. That's the beauty of understanding why is it they flipped out so much. Is because it was then they realized that Mashiach Yehoshua indeed was defining himself as the only one who walks in perfection of God's will. That's the beauty. And that is the sad reason that they rejected him. Instead of seeing they needed to do teshuvah and follow Mashiach Yehoshua, they rejected him because why? Because they couldn't handle the fact that he is definitely the Ben Elohim, the Son of God. You know, that's important for us to understand. It's important for us to understand and realize the fact of to be a son of God means you're one who keeps the Torah. You're one who keeps the commandments. You're one who follows and does what the Torah says. But to be that's the most beautiful term only Mashiach Yehoshua can have. And that makes him the absolute purpose of our life. Why is it we want to follow him and his instruction and the things that he teaches us? Because he's the model for our life. He's the reason by which when we look at his life, we see our imperfections and we see what we need to change. All right? That's some just beautiful insight there to give you some wonderful ideas to think about as to how important Hebrew is and how important Hebrew grammar can definitely change the context and especially change the element of what we're looking at here. All right. So now you know what a noun construct is, okay? Remember the fact that a noun construct in this state we're talking about refers to the grammatical element of the of. It's the of statement, okay? So think of every time you come across noun construct, which one is it? Is it the of or is it the next version that I'm going to be giving you here? So we've already conquered one element of noun construct. Now we need to conquer the next. The next one is going to be vitally important, just as much as the first one. And this one here, we're going to be talking about when we take the construct and we're going to make the absolute an adjective. That's right. We're taking the noun and we're turning it into an adjective. You didn't think nouns could be adjectives, did you? Oh, sure you did. You just don't think about it all the time. Why? Well, let's look at this thing, okay? If we have the word etz, etz is the word for tree. So here, tree, all right? I want to describe what kind of tree it is. I'm going to do what? I'm not going to use an adjective. Get out of here. No. We're using a noun. All right? What are we going to do? We're going to put the word pre. The word pre is the word for fruit. So this tells me what kind of tree it is. It's an etz pre, a tree of fruit. So we're talking about a fruit tree, okay? So here, we would translate this literally, fruit tree. You got it? Notice here, there is no of. That's because this is the secondary form of noun constructs. These are your noun compounds that you push together by which the secondary acts like an adjective. And therefore the adjective, which is this noun here, is telling you about the first word, which is your construct. Okay? So we have to define what kind of noun construct we're using. Are we talking about the noun construct by which is the of kind? Or are we talking about the noun construct by which the second noun is acting like an adjective? If we're talking about the second noun that's acting like an adjective, well, the second noun is now describing the first noun. Here's a beautiful example of this. All right. In Hebrew, we have in the Torah okay. In Hebrew we have in the Torah, here in the construct state, one second here. I'm going to find something. Give me my book over there. Yeah, the one that's in the front back. I want to make sure I have the vowels right on this one thing because I don't want you to have anything that's incorrect. Okay, that's how important it is. Not that one. Give me the small one. The Torah. The Torah. The Torah. Yeah, give me that one. Thank you. All right. 1 second here. This is very important because whenever it comes to our looking at words and understanding, it's always important that we always vocalize everything accurately. Because when we do that, we're able to understand what it is that we're looking at, and we can also follow. Almost done. Okay. That was. Alright. Out of my head, I said, you know what? Something's not sitting right. It was this. Okay. Okay. Let's look at this noun construct here, okay? One thing we need to understand, and this is really good because I didn't talk about this, and I need to talk about this one because it's going to help even register certain points that are needed to be understood. If we have a noun that has a hey at the end, let's look at, for example, the word mishpacha, okay? If we have a noun like the word mishpacha, okay, the noun, when it's put in the noun construct state, is going to force the hey to become a tav. And so instead of mishpacha, it becomes mishpachat, okay? So mishpachat, let me get this pei looking prettier. Mishpachat. So every noun that is put in the noun construct, if it has a hey ending noun, when we use the construct state, it has to become a tav, okay? And that's just a fact. You have to understand that. So it doesn't matter what the noun is, okay? If the noun already has a tav, we don't have to worry about it. But if the noun has a hey, we have to worry about it, and it's absolutely needed to be changed. So here we have, for example, this is used in Devarim, and it's the word arva. Arva means to be neged, okay? So it says arvat davar, okay? Arvat davar. Here, arvat, like I said, means neged. So we'll just put the word neged here. And the word davar means matter, okay? Or thing, okay? So we'll put matter slash thing, okay? So what is this noun construct doing? We're doing this kind where we have the of statement, okay? So here, because we have no definite state, we're going to put this in the indefinite state. A neged, okay, is going to be how this is going to be utilized, okay? But here we're saying arvat davar. So what is the noun construct telling me? Well, the neged is the construct and the davar is my absolute. So the davar is acting like an adjective. It's describing, it's the matter, okay, which is dealing with negedness. Now this tells me to say, well, what does that mean? The matter of negedness. A matter of negedness. Or I could say a negedness of matter. Okay? Doesn't matter. We're